Hey there, welcome to Story Time. It's me, Josh. Right now we're going to be reading Little Miss Fickle by Roger Hargreaves from the Little Miss Library of Books. We've read a lot of these amazing books already. Looking forward to finding out what we can learn and what messages we can take from this story today. So get comfortable, get ready, wherever you are, because we're about to delve into Story Time. Alright, awesome. If you like these videos, please click that bell below and subscribe. You can visit the page, read stories, whenever. Alright, let's go. Would you like me to tell you a story? If you were Little Miss Fickle, you'd say, yes, please. And then you'd say, no, thank you. And then you'd say, yes, again. Little Miss Fickle was one of those people who just could not make up their minds, ever, about anything. Question marks all over the page. They're like, whoa. Little Miss Fickle lived in Dandelion Cottage, which is on the outskirts of Sunnytown. And she lived right next door to her best friend, Little Miss Neat, who lived in Two Pin Cottage. One Monday, Little Miss Fickle and Little Miss Neat went out to lunch in Sunnytown. I'll have the soup to start with, said Little Miss Neat to the waiter as she looked at the menu, followed by the fish. So will I, said Little Miss Fickle. Little Miss Neat and the waiter chatting there. But after the waiter had written down the order, Little Miss Fickle looked at the menu again. No, I won't, she said. I'll have the salad instead, followed by the roast chicken. The waiter crossed out the first order and wrote down the second. On the other hand, she continued, I won't have anything to start with, but then I'll have the eggs. The waiter sighed. An hour later, after the waiter had worn out 3 pencils and 4 order pads, Little Miss Fickle finally made up her mind to have the soup, followed by the fish. The waiter brought the soup. Little Miss Fickle looked at it. I'm not hungry anymore, she said. It was at that moment the waiter decided he was going to be a bus conductor instead of a waiter. Giving up on the whole waiting thing. On Tuesday, Little Miss Fickle went to buy a hat. I want a new pink hat, she announced to the milliner. The milliner brought her 2 pink hats to choose from. I'll have this one, said Little Miss Fickle after she had tried them both on. Certainly, madam, replied the milliner and put the hat in the box. On the other hand, said Little Miss Fickle, I think I'll have the other hat. Already changed her mind. The milliner took the first hat out of the hat box and then put the second hat into the hat box. But, continued Miss Fickle, I think the first hat suited me better, don't you? The milliner didn't say a word as she took the second hat out of the box, then put the first hat back into the hat box. She handed the hat box to Little Miss Fickle. Little Miss Fickle looked at the milliner. Do you have any blue hats? She asked. It was at that moment the milliner decided she wanted to be a ballerina instead of a milliner. Another person that has done with their job after Little Miss Fickle was there. On Wednesday, Little Miss Fickle went to the butcher's. I'd like some sausages, she said. Beef sausages or pork sausages? Asked the butcher. Pork sausages, replied Little Miss Fickle. The butcher wrapped up the pork sausages. But beef sausages would be nicer, said Little Miss Fickle. The butcher unwrapped the pork sausages and wrapped up some beef sausages instead. On the other hand, continued Little Miss Fickle, chops would be tastier. It was at that moment the butcher decided he needed a holiday. Need a couple of days off after that one. But on Thursday, guess what happened? Little Miss Fickle disappeared. Little Miss Neat had seen her pass Two Pin Cottage on the way into Sunnytown, but she hadn't come back. She didn't come back on Friday either, so Little Miss Neat went looking for her. She met Mr. Muddle. Have you seen Little Miss Fickle? She asked anxiously. Mr. Muddle looked at her in a puzzled sort of way. Did you say have I been out for a little tickle? He asked. Oh, Mr. Muddle, said Little Miss Neat, and hurried on. Mr. Muddle's always a little bit muddled. Then Little Miss Neat met Mr. Forgetful. Have you seen Little Miss Fickle? She asked. Mr. Forgetful thought. Well, she said, have you? Mr. Forgetful thought again. Have I what? He asked after a little while. Oh, Mr. Forgetful, said Little Miss Neat and hurried on. But could she find Little Miss Fickle? No, she could not. Nobody had seen her. The Sunnytown Public Lending Library has 19,999 books. On Saturday afternoon, Little Miss Fickle reached up and took one of them down from a shelf. I'll read this one, she thought to herself. On the other hand, she thought again, looking at another book, perhaps I'll read that book instead. She put the first book back on the shelf and took the other book down. It was the 1999th book she had chosen. Little Miss Fickle had been in the library for 3 days choosing a book. 3 days. 3 whole days just choosing one single solitary book. She went home carrying her book. That Saturday afternoon, Little Miss Neat was in the garden of Two Pin Cottage when Little Miss Fickle walked past. "Where have you been?" she called out. "To the library," replied Little Miss Fickle. "For 3 days?" exclaimed Little Miss Neat. "Well," explained Little Miss Fickle, "I wanted to choose the right book." And she held it up, and she stopped and looked at it. Talking to Little Miss Neat there. She stopped and looked at the book and... "Oh, botherations," she said. "I've read it before." Well, after all of that, a weekend in the library to pick a book, she's read it already. Well, that's Little Miss Fickle. That's all we have time for today for this particular story. But don't worry, I'll be back again with another story very, very soon. Thanks so much for reading with me today. If you like this channel, please subscribe, click that bell. Alright, bye for now, but not forever. I'm Josh, and this is Storytime.